Hello and welcome to Gravitas WINS Conversations. This is the third episode in our fatherhood series that KK and I are doing. Today we are discussing about bonding with kids. Let me set the stage here. In the last episode, towards the end of that episode, KK mentioned we need to spend a lot of time with our kids so that we can bond with them. That phrase caught my attention. So then I discussed with KK, can we do a full episode on it? And here we are doing that episode. Bonding with kids is not an easy task, especially there's a gap of age. And we also live in a materialistic world. There is an ongoing demand to work more, earn more, bring home more. And we can, as fathers, we can get into that particular treadmill and easily excuse ourselves for working more, saying, we only do it for the home and for the betterment of our kids. Amidst this, how do we bond with our kids? That is what we want to discuss today. KK, do you want to start with some background about your family and what are you doing to bond
Mm.
with kids?
Okay, fine. Yeah, thanks for picking that thread, Joseph. When I mentioned that it was maybe I thought like a casual remark, but even after that point and after our discussion, I also wondered and went back. For us, any field we want to excel in, we definitely need to put in a lot of hours of work, right? Like
Mm,
it
mm,
goes without saying, like any field you want to gain mastery or even some sense of semblance, we all need to do that. I believe we also need to bring the same philosophy to bonding with kids. Now, how much percentage, what's the level at which we should bond, all of that, that's a very vague this thing according to me. It is more like in the case of bonding, I think it's to me it looks like more like a binary, like either your kids bond with you or you're
ah,
not there yet.
mm,
So there is a lot of room for improvement. I realized this very recently only. My kids, I have a elder daughter who is like 5.5 years old, and I have an younger son who is like 4 years old. So I also have my wife works for a bank, public sector bank. So we both are working parents, which
mm,
demands that somebody has to be there at also home, like some elders. So we rotate. Like sometimes my mother comes and stays with us. Sometimes my mother-in-law and my in-laws stay with us, because although I actually work from home for the last 1.5 years, but we know all the demands of this thing. It is one thing that we are working from home, but it is another thing to take care of kids. So
mm.
I don't think that's like we can mix and match, and we can say that okay, by working from home we can manage the kids also. I don't think that's a workable solution. So we have relied on our parents, and they have been very supportive. And yeah, I think that's something which had helped us in bringing up the kids, and they also had a layer of very different perspective to the overall kids growth and yeah, care and nurturing. So that's about the family, Joseph, and some background. Coming to the, I mean, bonding itself, like I said, it's more a recent phenomenon, like last maybe 1 year. Till then, they were very small, and somehow it didn't strike me also as much as today that I think I need to be very close with my kids. I like what you mentioned in the introduction, that we all are on a treadmill for various purposes. That treadmill also was one of the factors. But yeah, I think now maybe in the last 1 year I am taking a lot of efforts, and I'm seeing some positive signs. But yeah, I think like a plant or a tree, like a plant, you need to nurture. Kids are
Yeah.
also like that. So you are a very, I mean, you are ahead in the journey, Joseph, and why not share some tips or tricks that has worked for you with your kids? I mean, with both the boys, you do a lot of activities with them. You do joint activities like running or working. I mean, the studies and other things. So how does that work for you?
So, KK, the first and foremost thing is I think all of the things that you see outside running, all of that has to emanate from some kind of a principle, some kind of a thought process. So for me, when I got my boys, I mean, the first kid, somebody said to me, I forgot who said that to me. Somebody said to me, you only have 15 summers with your boys. That's all. You have 15 summers. That's it. And you need to make the best use of it. And it struck me hard. You only have 15 summers with them if you're lucky. And so one of the things that you would know in software industry is we all get married early, but that is when we are also growing up in our career. So we are focusing full time on our careers of, and then most of us work for a US or an European client. So from morning 6 o'clock we'll be on a call, and it'll go on until the evening 6, 7, 8, 9. There's no end. Uh, so then it is highly possible that we miss out on participating in the key milestones of our kids when they're going to school, or even before that, when they say the first words, amma, appa, or whatsoever, when they go to school, whatever that PTMs are in school, all of those kinds of stuff, we might miss out on. So I decided early on itself that until they become about 12 to 13, I'm going to spend as much time as possible with them. Then whatever foreign trips or any other things might come in, any opportunities or anything might come in, I will take it. So initially, I'm going to prioritize spending time with my boys. And then subsequently, I'm going to take up any opportunities that might come in as well. That, of course, it meant the priority means certain things that you are saying no to, and certain things you are saying yes to as well. Right. So that is one thing. I realized you only have 15 summers and you need to spend that time with the boys. Only then you can bond, because in their early days, if you bond with them, it'll be easier for you. Even afterwards you go out, and even if you don't meet them for a year or two whatsoever, you would still be able to bond with them. In the initial days you are away and you didn't make a bond with them, then after they are hitting 15, you hit 45, and as much time that you can spend with them, the bonding is not going to happen. It could probably a respect they will develop, but not a bond. So I said, I'm going to do that. So that's one. I said, the early days, I'm going to spend time with them. Then once I realized it, I would read a lot of storybooks with them. I will play with them. When I would come home, I will do a drama with them. I will play. I will sing songs. I will ask them to sing and all of those kinds of stuff. And when I moved to Panchkula, I was lucky. Again, you have already said you have hit that lucky rate a lot, which is true. So I started working only 3 days a week. Again, with that particular realization, only 3 days a week. So initially, those 2 days, my boys were still going to school. Once they come back from school, I would spend time with them. I will almost like 3 hours or so every alternate days. Whenever I was home, I would spend with them, reading books, asking what happened in school, taking them for a walk, whatever that I could do, I'll do that. Right. So that's the second thing. I spend a lot of time with them. So I think these two things is what I am doing to bond with them, and I'm seeing quite a bit of a good results. And I will tell you what I am spending time with them. As you rightly said. So I was listening to one Harvard professor. He said, you need to make memory. If you want to be happy, you need to make memory.
Very powerful.
That memory is what is going to bond whoever it is. So when you came to Panchkula, we went for a walk. Basically, it is the same thing. We went for a trekking for about an hour. So that's a memory. I'm sure anytime you think about Panchkula, you're going to think about that we went for a trekking in Suswan Dam, right?
Of
So that's a
course.
memory that you create. You might forget everything else, but that memory is going to stay. So I try to create as much memories as possible with the boys, rather than taking them to a movie, taking them to a mall. Those are all short term kind of pleasures, but they will not remember it long term. But they will definitely remember all of the memories, right? So I go jogging with them, I go walking with them, we go out and eat. When we are eating, we are only discussing what's happening, and as you know, my younger son is very much interested in cars, so he will go on rambling about one car after the other. So we are creating memories. So those are the 3 points that I would say. One, knowing that you only have 15 summers, you need to spend as much time as possible, and when you are spending time with them, as much time you are doing, create memories.
Hmm.
is what I would say. So, KK, how are you practicing these things, or
Yeah.
how are you spending time?
So, few things that I have started doing, Joseph, in this year is, of course, I've heard and read also that bedtime stories from fathers, I mean, in general, bedtime stories for children seems to have worked, and there are a lot of scientific evidence to back it up also. So, initially, what I did was we used to buy both English and Tamil, this, I mean, children's books, mostly picture books I am buying because
Mm.
they are very young. And if it is Tamil, I read in memory, and I tell them like what is the essence of it. And if it is English, again I will read them and I'll translate them and I'll tell them what is the story. I'll narrate it. So that's how I have been doing. But then off late, I started experimenting few things. One is if it is English, I went one step ahead and said, okay, I will read loud with the intonation, with the voice, the rising thing, with the drama sort of thing. It's not as much as enacting, but one level down, you can say, no physical sort of enacting, but more like with the voice. That is something which I'm doing. If it is English, yeah, I read it with the drama, and then I'll say, okay, if this means this is what it is. They don't yet understand English because they are just in the kindergarten, so it's mostly Tamil is what we are speaking at home, and Tamil is what mainly we do, although they are in an English CBSE school. So I'm fine with that. But the thing is, I've started doing this, and that's also, in a way, it is good. I'm seeing some difference because, for example, my son, after I enacted, I think one or two stories recently, maybe a week or a few days later, he had picked up few words from what I had enacted, and he started doing that. And it was really fun actually. So, okay, I understand, okay, what's the impact it has created now. So that was very, very impactful to me actually. Okay, this is something which is really working, and we should continue doing that. And I'm also I also write and read a lot. So in general, as you know, so I've been part of some writing clubs, and fortunately, this whole month, like the last 4 weeks, as part of the writing club, they had been bringing Penguin publisher children authors who had published children's books through Penguin. And yesterday was coincidentally one author came. His name is Deepak Dayal, who has written a very good best-selling books from for the children. So the question that I asked him was like, okay, how can I inculcate reading habits with my kids because he's an author for children. So he said, I also said that, okay, I'm reading these picture books and all of that. He said one very interesting point. He said, when you're reading, also spend more time on the pictures, go into the specifics, the details, the intricacies, the
Mm.
colors, all of that, explain them so that the children, they have a deeper understanding, and it also improves in multiple angles, a lot of things, the understanding of the overall story itself, their memory, and yeah, multiple angles. I actually agreed. Okay, I think that's something which I've not done, even though my elder kid, my daughter, she's very fascinated with these colors, crayons, drawing, and all of that. You give her a white paper, you leave her for some time, like 15 minutes. She will do something, and from her memory, she will draw something, she'll color it, and she'll come back to me and say that this is your gift. And she will say, explain a story for that. Okay, so she is very interested in this sort of thing. So I feel that, okay, if I do deeper about the picture related thing itself, I'm sure for my elder kid that is going to be really, I think she's in that zone, she likes all of that painting and drawing and all of that. I'm sure that will really help her.
Yeah,
So that's
that
something.
that's a very good point. Actually, it'll help the kids to see all of the details. And while
Yeah,
you are,
yeah,
I mean, that's the best time, right? I mean, you're telling them a story. If you're telling them a story about an elephant, you can talk about all of the
yeah,
elephant's features so
yeah.
that they understand that. And then anything that's a very interestingly, I wanted to ask you this, KK. You have a daughter and a son. In that, you're lucky. I have two sons. Do you find any difference? I
the
know
the
your son
fathers
is
the fathers who have daughters are more luckier than Joseph.
absolutely, absolutely, very true, very true. So you don't have to rub it.
This is my turn.
Uh, so I know your son is a lot younger, smaller. Is there any difference between the expectations on the bonding and whatever time you are spending? Is there any difference between daughters and sons from that particular angle?
So, Joseph, to that point, my son mostly emulates my daughter, actually, the elder one. At this point, whatever she says, he also repeats. So a lot of times that has been the case, like since he started speaking like 2 years. So most of the thing he says or just a repeat of my daughter's thing. So at this point, although they are quite very different in behavior and the likes and dislikes, that is very evident that they are not same. They are very different actually. One likes chapati and another likes dosa. One likes coconut chutney, another likes tomato chutney. So their preferences are very different in that sense. And if I ask my kid to give me something of her food, she will give it immediately. But my son doesn't do like there are. I'm just trying to say that okay, they are very different, but
It is always the case. Okay, daughters will take care of the fathers.
fathers, yeah. So
So
I am see I'm say
I have a doubt. I have a doubt, or I have a concern about my older age.
older age, yeah, you better be concerned about it. But one good thing is at this point, I think whatever interests my daughter, my son comes along at this point. So if I say that, okay, I'm going to tell a story, okay, if you're going to go out, if my daughter likes, then my son is on board. So that is to some extent, I think this is only probably until he is able to take some decisions, or probably until he is able to come out of that. Maybe another year or two is what I'm seeing. Maybe after first grade, I'm sure he will come out of that. And of course, there will be always some influence of the elder one on the younger one. And I am also seeing that, although I don't know whether this is a very right statement at this age to make, but girls or daughters mature a little earlier than the boys.
Absolutely.
And that I'm seeing from the way she talks, understands, communicates, a lot of things, perception and all of that. So my son is still very naive, and I mean both are naive, but he doesn't understand a lot of things. So yeah, I don't see yet a major difference. But yeah, few things that they like, some of the biases are coming in actually, Joseph. So that is something which I am very worrying actually.
Tell me more.
My daughter says that okay, I will like a pink doll, only Barbie I like, or this papu, that's a beer which is in pink color I like. Whereas my son, I don't know how he got that. He says that girls only like blue, pink, and my daughter also likes green or something. So only they like that. Boys only like this. And the choice of toys, right? Like if car is there, then naturally my son is there saying that okay, this is mine. Girls don't. I don't know how this has come in, but I'm trying to educate them, saying that it doesn't mean that okay, colors only girls should like a pink or a blue or whatever, and boys should only like a blue or something like that. So this is something which is, at least because we have seen that okay, these sort of biases can distort in the future. And I mean at a global level, we are trying to avoid that at workplace and all of that. I think the seeds of that are sown as young as like 4 years and 5 year olds. So I think this is something which as parents we should be aware of, and I think we need to really
Very true. Very true.
focus on
And
that.
I'm surprised because we always hear this nature and nurture, all of those kinds of concepts, and when we read it, it is probably at a distant level that we understand. Yeah, maybe, but when we see it at home with our own kids, then it kind of hits you, and that's when you realize, oh my God, this is probably true, right? And I think what you said about daughters maturing faster, I would say that it is very true. My sister is 4 years younger to me, but now she's the default decision maker at home. So, so everything passes through her, whatever it is, everything
Yeah,
passes through her, and we have to have the stamp of approval of my sister.
sister.
Otherwise, it doesn't happen. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think so. From that sense, I think as you grow, as they grow, I think that demand will be a lot more seen,
Yeah,
that the differences in the demand, differences in all of those things. Probably now it is way too young. The other one point that you mentioned is also interesting. We mimic each other, that
yeah,
influence that is there, and
true.
especially the younger one is always mimicking the elder one. And I
Yeah.
see that at my home also. I think in between me and my sister it happened, but I see that in my home as well. Is that whenever I ask for addition, should we do this or do that, there is always, okay, what will you say, what will I say? And then if the elder one says something, the younger one mostly say, yeah, maybe I also like it. Very rarely they will kind of fight on that particular aspect. They fight
Okay.
a lot, but at least on this aspect I see that influence of the elder one being there on the younger one a lot.
Yeah.
But as they grow, probably they will diverge.
So, Joseph, one thing which I wanted to interject at that point was like in your previous response, you were talking about the influence of probably the work, right? Like what we do, nature
Mm,
of work, probably.
mm.
Like most of the, at least a significant part of India, middle class, upper middle class, they had all taken the engineering route and
Yeah.
they had all started working for software services. And this has been a very big growth driver for the economy since the early
Yes.
90s, late 80s onwards. And by default now people ask by company names like, okay, are you working on that, this, but it also comes with its own set of limitations, like what you said, because we work for the US and the European clients, the Western clients, or probably the Eastern clients. But yeah, it could be varying. What's the what do you think is the impact of that on bonding, right? Like, because I'll tell an example. In my one of my previous organizations that I worked, there was a chief solutions architect. She's a woman. I think she got her kid a little late actually, because she has already reached a very senior position. And there was a big deal that we had signed, and there was this transition happening from the client to us. And we were based in Chennai, and the client was based in Bangalore. It was a large networking equipment manufacturer. So, as part of the transition, the organization made sure that she was still in the stage of giving milk, actually, mother's milk, feeding, actually. So, they made sure that every day they had booked a flight, at least for a month. I think month or 2 months, I don't know, the entire transition period. Morning she'll go, evening she'll return. She'll fly from Chennai, Bangalore, Bangalore to Chennai. Because just to ensure that mother's feeding is really important, and probably because she was also very senior and she's a very good stakeholder in that deal. And I think this is one thing which also alters a lot of the perception about the company, how you take care of the employees and other things. I don't know whether they would have done the same thing for all the employees, but the point is at least they are showing that they are going to do this extra mile thing. So what do you think? Because I had also been in that, we take late night calls and all of that. So what do you think of the impact of this industry itself, to say specifically, because we both are from that industry? That's why I'm asking
So,
about this.
so couple of points, KK. And as much as it has helped us, otherwise I would have been a lecturer or in a teaching job, much like my parents and my family, others. So I'm thankful for this particular industry. I have the opportunity to work here, make a living, and do whatever that we are doing. So I'm very thankful for this particular thing. Like every profession, there is going to be a negative thing attached to it as well. There's going to be pros and cons of that particular thing. And not all companies take care of their employees well. Now, some, it might not, like for example, small companies, they might give you certain things. They might be able to, from the CEO down, they will all know you each other. There's a close bonding because it's a small team and so on and so forth. But in a large company, something else might be there, but this particular relationship may not be there. Uh, Not all companies offer this. I mean, not all companies can offer this. They are not in a position to offer this. And even if there is an opportunity or affordability, they may not offer that. Basically, from a profit motive perspective, they might say, if we would give this, everybody will ask for it, and then there will be more. The profit will go off, and so on and so forth. Right. So I think one, we should find a company that will help us. So this is where, in one of the conversation that I had with Meenakshi, you would also know her, is that she said, we often think of choices as sacrifices, but rather you should think of it as priorities. At a certain point in time, you are prioritizing something other than something else, rather than thinking of it as, oh, I'm sacrificing for my family, or I'm sacrificing my family for my office, and so on and so forth. Don't think of that. I buy into that particular thing. So I think at some point in time, you need to prioritize. So for me, as I said, I picked up a job in a smaller company. I only work 3 days a week. Obviously, that has an impact on my revenue, my income. But I picked it up. That's a priority. For the first 15 years of my boys, I said I'm going to prioritize spending time with them, their education, their growth, and all of that. So that's what I would say. So you need to you need to prioritize what is important for you and take accordingly. Right. So that's the second thing that I would say. The other one is, Whatever you do, whichever company you are in, you might be in the best of the company that takes care of you and everything. You will still have days which are not good. Your mood is upset, things didn't go well, the client yelled at you, the project failed, the delivery failed. All of those things could happen wherever you are, right? In one of the interviews with Andrew Agassi, he said again they got married much later, Andrew Agassi and Steffi Graf, and I was a huge fan of both of them. They got married late and they had a kid. And in one of the interviews, the interviewer asked, "How is the Andrew Agassi and Steffi Graf, the Wimbledon champions? How are they as parents? How are you as an Andrew Agassi? How are you as a dad?" He said, when I come home, so his boy was very, very little. So he said, when I come home, my son does not care his father won an Wimbledon champion or he he lost the championship point. It doesn't matter to him. For him, what matters is my father is here. Is he playing with me? That's all matters. So I think even we are like that, but like I mean, for our kids, I think that is important. So when I come home, when I reach home, I play that particular interview of course now it is very different. They are grown up, so I don't do that. But when they were young, almost every day before I step into the house, I will play that particular interview in my head. They don't care, dad is handling $1 million project. He released a good release and the client appreciated. None of those things matter. Or there was a escalation and the client is yelling at father, abusing the father on the phone. Nothing matters to my sons,
True, very true.
right? So as soon as I come home, I refresh myself and I go hug them and have a coffee with them, or a tea, or whatever my wife would have prepared. I stay with them, right? So I think those three are the points that I would say. You need to prioritize, and as Andrew Agassi said, your sons do not bother what day your dad had. You need to do that. So that's what I would say.
So Joseph, another thing which touched me was on the some other aspects that you told. I think that can we do it as a follow up to this session, like the following session, like because I think you touched upon multiple things in your response. So I really feel that maybe we should delve deeper on that angle in the coming session. What do you think?
We will do that. What is that?
I think I made a note. I will come back to it. Let's
Okay.
keep the suspense also for the audience.
Okay, wonderful. But I want to ask you because see, we stay in Chandigarh.
Uh,
My parents do visit here once in a while, or something like that. But then the climate can be erratic here. The climate is during winter it can go to 5 degrees,
I can understand.
and
Yeah.
and during summer it can go up to 48. In them coming from a Tuticorin and a Bangalore climate, it is not easy for them to cope up. So they don't come here often. Whereas for you, you have the luxury of your mother or mother-in-law coming in.
Yeah.
How does it play in, especially you as a father bonding with your children? So we are still within that. How does that help you? How does that play in that particular thing, KK?
Okay, so it's more like it's less like a luxury, but more like a need actually, because
Mm,
since both of us are working, I don't think there is any other way. Otherwise, we need to have a maid at home to
mm,
take care of my kids, right? I think in your case, again, you are lucky because you have a good Rani as your queen as your homemaker. But yeah, because we made a decision to pursue a career, both of us, so that puts a. I mean, the choices are limited, like two or three probably. You can either leave them
yeah,
in a kids
Australia.
crush, or you can have a maid, or you can have somebody from your parents. My father was very strict from
Mm,
the beginning when my kids were there, that I think one of us should be there to take care of them. So he ensured that he was staying along with my sister also for some time when she was here, when my brother-in-law was still in US or US. So my mother used to be staying along with me. So both my parents, one with my sister and one with me actually. So they prioritize. I mean, this value also came from my father to some extent, that he made sure that okay, let's not look at other options. I mean, we will, even though they could live a little happier, relaxed retirement life, they said that no, at this stage, kids are more important and they're in the growing stage, and we need to be there. So because of that, I think they were there with me at least till my first kid was like almost like 3 years. And then unfortunately my father died, and because of the family situation my in-laws stepped in, and they had been with us for the last couple of years. So it definitely helps on two angles. One is the daily chores, right? Like, because they are there, they are taking care of some of it, of
Hmm.
which my bandwidth is not required to be spent on that as much as needed. So I can really spend a little more time. Similarly with my wife also, right? Like for
Hmm.
my wife also the same thing. So because they are there, so they are able to take care of some of the household requirements, and that's really giving us some additional time in our hand for both my wife and my for me. So yeah, so that helps us to spend a little more time than what we would have spent on outside the kids doing the home related stuff and all of that. So it also
I
brings
think
down our stress levels.
stress levels, correct.
Yeah.
And I think I'm sure. So whenever we would go to my sister's house where my parents are, and then the boys will be there, I ensure that uh, my dad, grandpa, talks to the kids about the values and everything. I'm sure in your case also, probably that's a regular occurrence. You may not really orchestrate it as it has to happen, because in your case they are there all the time, but in my case I had to orchestrate it. So I think that is also one other thing. The values that you say you want to instill on your kids, a lot of it would have come from your parents, and when your parents say the same thing, I think it becomes a lot more solidified in the kid's mind. So in that
Yeah,
also.
and also they also have a very different view of the life and world itself,
Mm,
right? Like, because
mm,
they are
mm,
more experienced than us.
mm, mm.
Maybe in some cases we are more information heavy, download and knowledge in some angle, but I think they have wisdom on their side compared to us.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think after 40 years we realize that more than information, wisdom is needed. Right? I mean, information would say that okay, if a barking dog is there, throw a stone at it.
Yeah.
But wisdom is just don't disturb it. You go along your path, and it will go on its own. So that wisdom is something which I don't think you need somebody wiser who had been there and who is ahead of you to share. I think with when grandparents are also there, the kids' behavior also very different than how they behave with parents, right? Like with parents, there is a different sort of demand and or behavior versus grandparents. So that's also really helpful and useful, and it's required actually. I don't know. Both of us are lucky in some extent with using the grandparents, which not many people probably will
Yeah.
be having.
Yeah. I think with those wise words and the wise analogy that you gave, probably it's a good time to end. Thank you, KK, for all of these that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. It was so nice talking to you.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you like it, please subscribe, comment, and share it with others. And if you have any other questions that you would want us to discuss, please share it with either one of us, and we'll be happy to discuss them. Thank you. Have a life of wins.